I'm 34 years old, and I can't remember saving a single life. The fluorescent lights of Seattle General Hospital buzz above me as I stare at my hands. These same hands that apparently performed over 1,000 surgeries, hands that trembled as they held beating hearts, hands that now shake just trying to button my shirt. 3 months ago, I was Dr. Maya Rodriguez, one of the youngest cardiothoracic surgeons on the West Coast. Today, I'm just Maya, a woman who remembers building sandcastles at age 7, but can't recall the face of a single patient I've saved. The neurologist, Dr. Martinez, sits across from me with that look I've grown to hate, pity, mixed with clinical fascination. The hemorrhagic stroke was severe, Maya. The fact that you're walking and talking is miraculous. Your childhood memories are intact because they're stored in different neural pathways, but everything from your teenage years forward. He trails off, the way doctors do when the news isn't what anyone wants to hear. Gone, I finish for him, my voice barely above a whisper. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent years studying the brain, understanding how memory works, how trauma affects neural pathways. Now I'm living proof of everything I once knew, but can no longer remember learning. My apartment, which I don't remember choosing, is filled with medical journals I can't recall reading, awards I don't remember earning, photos with colleagues whose names are lost to me forever. Rain patters against the hospital windows, and I think about my childhood in Portland, about my mother teaching me to braid my hair, about the goldfish I had named Dr. Bubbles because even at 8, I wanted to be a doctor. Those memories are crystal clear, like watching home movies in high definition. But the day I graduated medical school, the first time I held a scalpel, the moment I decided to specialize in hearts, nothing. Just an endless void where 12 years of my life should be. My phone buzzes with a text from someone named Jessica. Thinking of you, girl. Coffee tomorrow? We need to talk about the foundation. I stare at the message, trying to summon any recognition. Foundation? The contacts in my phone are full of people who apparently know me intimately, but to me, they're strangers pretending to be friends. Dr. Martinez clears his throat. Have you given any more thought to the rehabilitation program I mentioned? There are cognitive therapies that might help trigger some memories. I shake my head. What's the point? Even if I remember fragments, I can't operate anymore. My hands shake, my concentration is shot, and I can't trust my judgment when I don't even remember my training. The truth is more terrifying than I'm willing to admit. Yesterday, I tried to remember how to suture a simple cut on my finger. I sat there for 20 minutes, holding the needle, my hands trembling not from nerve damage, but from the crushing realization that the knowledge that once flowed through me like blood was simply gone. As I leave the hospital, walking past the surgical wing where I apparently spent most of my waking hours, I catch a glimpse of doctors in scrubs rushing toward an emergency. Their movements are fluid, purposeful, confident. I used to be one of them. Now I'm just another patient, another cautionary tale about how quickly everything can change. The elevator doors close, and I see my reflection, a stranger wearing my face, carrying the weight of a life I can't remember living. Tomorrow, I'll wake up in an apartment that doesn't feel like home, surrounded by achievements that feel like someone else's dreams. But tonight, I'll remember being 7 years old, promising my mother that I'd help people when I grew up. If only I could remember how. I find the letter while cleaning out what used to be my home office, a space that feels more like a museum of someone else's accomplishments. It's tucked between the pages of a surgical textbook, written in my own handwriting but in words I don't remember writing. If something ever happens to me, remember why we started this. The children need us. M. Jessica, the name from yesterday's text. The letter is addressed to her, and suddenly the foundation she mentioned makes sense, even if I don't remember creating it. I dial her number with trembling fingers. Maya. Her voice is warm, familiar in a way that makes my chest ache. How are you feeling? I've been so worried since the stroke, I finish. Jessica, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Who are you to me? The silence stretches so long, I think the call has dropped. When she speaks again, her voice is thick with tears. I'm your best friend, Maya. Have been since residency at Johns Hopkins. We lived together for 3 years, survived our internship together, and God, you really don't remember anything, do you? I close my eyes, trying to force some recognition, some emotional connection to this woman who clearly loves me. Nothing. Tell me about the foundation. Hearts for Hope. We started it 5 years ago after that case. The little girl with the congenital heart defect whose family couldn't afford the surgery. Maria Santos. You operated on her for free, and afterward, you said we needed to do more. We've helped over 200 children since then. Maria Santos. I repeat the name, hoping it will trigger something, but it's just sounds in the air. 200 children. Lives I saved that I can't remember saving. The weight of it is crushing. Can you come over? I ask. I need to understand who I was. Rachel arrives within an hour, carrying a thick photo album and a bottle of wine. She looks exactly like someone I should remember. Shoulder-length auburn hair, laugh lines around green eyes, the kind of face that belongs in my life. But she's a stranger, and the guilt of that eats at me. We sit on my couch, apparently our couch, since she points out the wine stain from my 30th birthday party, and she begins the impossible task of reconstructing 12 years of friendship. This is us in our 2nd year of residency, she says, pointing to a photo of 2 exhausted-looking women in scrubs. We'd been awake for 36 hours straight. You insisted on getting matching tattoos. She rolls up her sleeve to reveal a small stethoscope on her wrist. You have the same one on your ankle. I look down at my ankle, and sure enough, there it is. A tattoo I don't remember getting, marking a moment I can't recall sharing. It might as well be on someone else's body. Tell me about the surgeries, I say. The ones that mattered. Rachel's eyes light up, and for the next 2 hours, she tells me stories of the surgeon I used to be. The emergency valve replacement during a power outage when I operated by flashlight. The conjoined twins separated after a 14-hour surgery. The heart transplant where I personally flew to retrieve the organ because no one else was available. You changed people's lives, Sarah. You were brilliant, dedicated, and you never gave up on a patient. Even when everyone else said it was hopeless, you found a way. But as she talks, I realize something devastating. I can understand the medical terminology, the procedures she describes, but it's academic knowledge, like reading about surgery in a textbook. The emotional connection, the passion that drove me to spend years perfecting my craft, the satisfaction of saving lives, it's all gone. I can't feel it, I whisper. I understand what you're telling me, but I can't feel it. It's like you're describing someone else's life. Rachel reaches for my hand. The Sarah I know is still in there. Maybe not the memories, but the heart that made you want to help people. That little girl who wanted to be a doctor. She's still you. I want to believe her. But as I look around this apartment filled with evidence of a life I can't remember, I feel like an imposter wearing a dead woman's clothes. The surgeon who saved all those lives is gone, and I'm just what's left behind. A shell with her face and her childhood dreams. That night, after Rachel leaves, I sit in my bathroom, staring at the tattoo on my ankle. I try to remember the pain of the needle, the laughter Rachel described, the friendship that meant enough to mark permanently on my skin. But there's nothing, just the echo of a life I'll never get back. I look in the mirror and whisper, "Who were you, Sarah Chen?" The reflection stares back, silent and strange, holding secrets I'll never unlock. The coffee shop where I'm supposed to meet Rachel feels like entering someone else's favorite place. The barista, a young man with kind eyes, greets me by name. The usual, Dr. Chen? Double shot espresso? Extra hot? No sugar? I stare at him, my face heating with embarrassment. I'm sorry, but I don't remember what I usually order. His expression shifts from confusion to understanding, and I realize Rachel must have called ahead. No problem. How about I make you something new? Sometimes change is good. As I wait for my drink, a caramel macchiato that tastes nothing like something the old Sarah would have ordered. I see Rachel approaching with a folder under her arm. She looks nervous, which makes my stomach clench. I brought something, she says, sliding into the booth across from me. Remember yesterday when you asked about the surgeries that mattered? There's one I didn't tell you about. She opens the folder and pulls out what looks like a child's drawing, stick figures holding hands under a rainbow, with "Thank you, Dr. Sarah," written in crayon across the top. This is from Emma Rodriguez, 7 years old. She was born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Basically, half her heart never developed properly. Most babies with this condition don't live past their first week. I study the drawing, trying to feel some connection to this child whose name should mean everything to me. What happened to her? You performed a series of 3 surgeries, starting when she was just 5 days old. The Norwood procedure, then the Glenn, and finally the Fontan completion when she was 4. Each surgery was incredibly risky. Each one could have been her last. But you never gave up on her. Rachel pulls out a photograph, a little girl with dark curls and bright eyes, holding a soccer ball and grinning at the camera. This was taken last month. She's 7 now, plays soccer twice a week, and wants to be a doctor when she grows up, because of you. The words hit me like a physical blow. This child is alive because of hands I can't remember using, knowledge I can't recall learning, decisions I made with a mind that no longer exists. Does she know about my condition? Her mother called when she heard about your stroke. Emma wants to see you. The thought terrifies me. How do you face a child whose life you saved when you can't remember saving it? How do you accept gratitude for something that feels like someone else's accomplishment? I can't, I whisper. What would I say to her? I don't remember her, Rachel. I don't remember any of them. You don't have to remember to care about what happens next, Rachel says gently. The foundation is struggling without you. The board is talking about shutting down the free surgery program. 200 families depend on what we do. I think about all those children, all those families who need help I can no longer provide. The surgeon who could save them is gone, and I'm just a broken woman sitting in a coffee shop trying to figure out how to live with someone else's responsibilities. I can't operate anymore, I say. My hands shake, my concentration is shot, and I don't trust my judgment. How can I help them if I can't do the one thing I was trained for? Rachel leans forward, her eyes intense. You think surgery was the only way you helped people? Sarah, you spent half your time fighting insurance companies, raising money, training other surgeons in developing countries, and advocating for policy changes. You saved lives with your scalpel, but you changed the system with your voice. That afternoon, Rachel takes me to the Hearts for Hope office, a small space downtown that apparently used to feel like a second home. The walls are covered with photos of children, thank you letters, and certificates of appreciation. In the center is a large photo of me shaking hands with a senator, both of us smiling beside a podium that reads, Universal Pediatric Cardiac Care Act. You testified before Congress 3 times, Rachel explains. That bill passed last year. It's already saved thousands of kids whose families couldn't afford treatment. I stare at the photo, at this confident woman who looks like me but feels like a stranger. She's wearing a navy suit I find hanging in my closet, holding papers I probably spent weeks preparing, fighting for something I believed in, with a passion I can't remember feeling. I don't know how to be her, I admit, my voice breaking. You don't have to be her, Rachel says. You just have to be you. The woman who wanted to help people when she was 7 years old. The woman who still understands that every child deserves a chance at life. The surgeon is gone, Sarah, but the healer is still here. That evening, I sit in my office at home, surrounded by files about children waiting for surgery, insurance appeals that need to be written, and funding proposals that require approval. For the first time since the stroke, I pick up a pen and start to write. To whom it may concern. I am writing to appeal the denial of coverage for cardiac surgery for Timothy Walsh, age 6. The words come slowly, but they come. I may not remember learning to fight for these children, but apparently it's knowledge that lives deeper than memory, in the part of me that still knows right from wrong. I work until dawn, writing appeals, making phone calls, and reviewing cases. When the sun rises over Seattle, I realize something has shifted. I may never remember being the surgeon who saved Emma Rodriguez, but I can still be the advocate who fights for the next Emma. It's not the life I had before, but maybe it's the life I need now. The knock on my door comes at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, soft and hesitant. Through the peephole, I see a woman about my age holding the hand of a small girl with dark curls. My heart stops. I know without being told that this is Emma Rodriguez and her mother. Doctor, Chen? The woman's voice carries a slight accent, and her eyes are bright with unshed tears. I'm Maria Rodriguez. This is Emma. We wanted to see you. Emma steps forward, clutching something in her small hands. Mama said you're sick now, but you made my heart better when I was little. I brought you something. She holds out a hand-drawn card with "Get well soon" written in careful letters, decorated with hearts and flowers. Inside, in a child's earnest handwriting, "Thank you for saving my life. I hope someone can save yours too." I have to grip the doorframe to keep from collapsing. This child, this beautiful, alive, vibrant child, exists because of me, a me I can't remember being. The weight of it is overwhelming. "Would you like to come in?" I manage to ask. We sit in my living room, and Emma immediately begins chattering about school, her soccer team, and her dream of becoming a doctor. Her mother watches her with the fierce love of someone who knows how precious each moment is. "The doctors said she had maybe a week," Maria tells me quietly, while Emma examines my bookshelf. "They said to prepare for the worst. But you looked at her like you saw possibilities instead of problems. I want to remember that moment, that decision to fight for this child when others had given up. But there's nothing, just this gnawing sense of loss for the person I used to be." "Dr. Chen?" Emma has found one of my medical textbooks and is flipping through it with intense curiosity. "Will you teach me about hearts? I want to fix them like you do." "I don't fix hearts anymore, sweetheart," I say, the words tasting bitter. "I got sick, and now I can't remember how." Emma considers this with the seriousness only children can bring to complex problems. "But you still have your brain, right? And your hands? Maybe you just need to learn again, like when I learned to ride my bike after I got strong enough." Her mother's eyes widen. "Emma, that's not how—" "Why not?" Emma interrupts. "She learned it once. She can learn it again, and I can help. I know lots about hearts now because I had to learn about mine." The simplicity of her logic is both heartbreaking and inspiring. In her world, problems have solutions, setbacks are temporary, and the woman who saved her life is still capable of saving others. After they leave, I sit with Emma's card in my hands, staring at those carefully drawn hearts. For the first time since the stroke, I feel something stir inside me. Not memory, but possibility. I call Rachel. "I want to visit the pediatric cardiac unit." "Sarah, are you sure? It might be difficult. I need to see them. The children. If I can't remember the ones I've saved, maybe I can understand why they mattered." The next day, Rachel accompanies me to Seattle Children's Hospital. The pediatric cardiac unit is exactly what you'd expect. Bright colors, cheerful murals, and an atmosphere of forced optimism that barely masks the underlying fear. Dr. Williams, the current head of pediatric cardiology, greets me with the same mixture of pity and professional courtesy I've grown accustomed to. "Sarah, it's good to see you. How are you feeling?" "Lost," I answer honestly. "But I'm here to learn." He takes us on a tour, explaining the current cases, the challenges they're facing, the surgeries scheduled for the week. As we walk through the unit, I realize something remarkable. I may not remember my training, but I can still understand what he's telling me. The knowledge is there, buried but not destroyed. We stop outside the room of a 6-year-old boy named David, whose parents are conferring with a surgeon about an upcoming operation. Through the window, I see a child who looks frighteningly small in the hospital bed, connected to monitors that beep steadily. "Tetralogy of Fallot," Dr. Williams explains. "Complex case. The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow, but the family is terrified. They've asked for you specifically. Apparently, you operated on their older daughter 3 years ago." The parents notice us through the window and hurry over. "Dr. Chen, thank God you're here. We were so worried when we heard about your stroke. David has been asking for you." I want to disappear, to run from this responsibility I can't fulfill. But then David sees me through the window and waves, his face lighting up with trust I haven't earned, or at least can't remember earning. "I can't operate on him," I tell his parents, the words feeling like shards of glass in my throat. I'm not that doctor anymore." His mother's face crumbles, but then she does something unexpected. She takes my hands in hers. "You gave us our daughter back. You fought for her when everyone else said it was hopeless. Maybe you can't hold a scalpel anymore, but you're still the person who taught us to believe in miracles. That night, I stay up reading everything I can find about tetralogy of Fallot, about the surgical techniques, about the recovery process. I can't operate, but I can understand, and maybe understanding is enough. The next morning, I'm back at the hospital, not in scrubs, but in regular clothes, sitting with David's family during his 6-hour surgery. I explain what's happening at each stage, translate the medical updates, and hold his mother's hand when the surgeon comes out to say the operation was successful. "Thank you," his father says as we watch David in recovery, his color already better than it was before surgery. "We couldn't have gotten through this without you." I realized then that Rachel was right. Surgery was never the only way I helped people. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply be present, to stand witness to fear and hope and the miraculous fragility of human life. As I drive home that evening, I pass the coffee shop where I met Rachel, the foundation office where I'm slowly learning to advocate again, and the apartment that's starting to feel less like a museum and more like home. I may not remember being the surgeon who saved Emma Rodriguez, but I'm learning to be someone new, someone who fights for children in different ways, someone who finds meaning in moments rather than memories. It's not the life I planned, but it's the life I have. And maybe, just maybe, it's enough. 6 months after Emma's visit, I'm standing in front of a room full of medical students at the University of Washington. My hands aren't shaking anymore, not because my memories have returned, but because I've found something new to believe in. "How many of you want to be surgeons?" I ask the group of eager faces. About half the hands go up, and I see myself in their ambition, their certainty that technical skill is the highest calling in medicine. "How many of you want to change the healthcare system?" Fewer hands this time, but the ones that rise do so with conviction. "Here's what I've learned," I tell them, walking to the front of the classroom. "Surgery saves one life at a time. Policy changes save thousands." I click to my first slide, a photo of Emma Rodriguez on her soccer field, healthy and laughing. This is Emma. 7 years ago, I performed a series of operations that gave her a functioning heart. But Emma's story isn't unique because of the surgery. It's unique because her family had access to a surgeon who would perform that surgery for free. The next slide shows statistics that make several students gasp: the number of children who die from treatable heart conditions simply because their families can't afford treatment. I can't remember performing Emma's surgery, I continue, and the room falls silent. 6 months ago, I had a stroke that took away 12 years of surgical training and experience. I can't operate anymore, but I've learned something important. There are many ways to heal people. I spend the next hour telling them about the Hearts for Hope Foundation, about the insurance appeals I write, about the legislation I help draft, about the training programs we fund in underserved communities. I tell them about Dr. Sarah Kim, a brilliant cardiac surgeon who grew up in rural Montana and now performs complex procedures in her hometown because our foundation paid for her specialized training. She saved more lives in her small hospital than I ever could in a major medical center, I explain, because she's the only pediatric cardiac surgeon within 500 miles. After the lecture, a student approaches me, a young woman with the same intense focus I recognize from old photos of myself. "Dr. Chen, I'm Jessica Martinez. I'm applying for surgical residencies, but after hearing you speak, how do you know if you're choosing the right path?" I study her face, seeing the uncertainty beneath her determination. "What made you want to be a doctor?" "My little brother had leukemia when he was 6. The doctors at our local hospital said there was nothing they could do, but my parents drove him 12 hours to St. Jude. He's 15 now, completely healthy. I want to be the doctor who saves kids like him." "And you think surgery is the only way to do that?" She hesitates. "Isn't it?" I think about Emma, about David, about all the children whose lives have been touched by Hearts for Hope. There's a family in rural Oregon whose daughter needs heart surgery. Their insurance denied coverage, and they can't afford to pay out of pocket. Tomorrow, I'm going to write an appeal that will probably save her life. I'll never meet this child, never touch her heart, but she'll live because someone fought for her access to care. Jessica nods slowly. "My brother almost died because we lived in the wrong place, not because the treatment didn't exist." Exactly. We need brilliant surgeons, but we also need advocates, policymakers, researchers, and people who understand that healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. That evening, I'm in my office working on a grant proposal when Rachel calls. "I have news," she says, and I can hear the excitement in her voice. The National Institutes of Health wants to fund a nationwide expansion of Hearts for Hope, $5 million over 3 years. I drop my pen. "Are you serious?" "They want you to lead it. You'd be traveling to hospitals across the country, setting up programs, training advocates, working with legislators. It's huge, Sarah." I lean back in my chair, overwhelmed by the possibility. A year ago, I thought my life was over. Now I'm being offered the chance to build something bigger than I ever imagined when I was just a surgeon. "There's one condition," Rachel continues. "They want you to document the process, maybe write a book about systemic change in healthcare. Your story, losing your medical career but finding a new way to heal, it resonates with people." That night, I sit down to write the first chapter of what might become that book. But instead of starting with the stroke, I start with Emma's visit, with her simple question about why I couldn't just learn to be a surgeon again. "She was right, in a way," I write. "I couldn't relearn surgery, but I could learn something new. I could learn that healing comes in many forms, sometimes through a scalpel, sometimes through legislation, sometimes through simply refusing to accept that no is a final answer when a child's life is at stake. I think about the medical student, Jessica, and wonder what path she'll choose. I think about Dr. Kim in Montana, about the insurance appeal I'll write tomorrow, about the $5 million that could transform how we care for children with heart disease. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Dr. Chen, this is Maria Rodriguez. Emma wanted me to send you this." The attached photo shows Emma at a science fair, standing next to a poster about congenital heart disease. The title reads, "How Doctors Like Dr. Sarah Chen Save Lives Every Day." I stare at the photo for a long time, at this child who sees possibility where I once saw only loss. She's right. I am still Dr. Sarah Chen. Not the surgeon I was, but the advocate I've become. Not the person I was before the stroke, but someone new. Someone who understands that healing happens in ways I never imagined when I was focused solely on the operating room. Tomorrow, I'll start planning the national expansion of Hearts for Hope. I'll write appeals for children I'll never meet, train advocates who will carry this work forward, and continue building something that will outlast any individual surgeon's career. The woman who wanted to help people when she was 7 years old is still here. She just found a different way to keep that promise. 2 years later, I'm standing in the same hospital room where I first met Emma Rodriguez. But this time I'm not visiting a patient. I'm here with her. At 9 years old, Emma has become the youngest spokesperson for Hearts for Hope, and today she's visiting children preparing for the same surgeries that once saved her life. "The scar doesn't hurt," she's telling a frightened 6-year-old named Marcus, pulling up her shirt to show the thin line down her chest. "And after surgery, you get to eat all the ice cream you want. Dr. Chen told me that's the most important part of recovery." I watch her comfort this child with the wisdom that only comes from having walked the same terrifying path, and I'm struck by how much has changed since I lost my memory. The national expansion of Hearts for Hope has helped over 3,000 children access cardiac care. We've trained advocates in 47 states, passed legislation in 12, and created a model that other organizations are copying worldwide. But more than that, I've remembered something important. Not a memory from my lost years, but a truth I knew when I was 7. Healing isn't just about fixing what's broken. Sometimes it's about holding someone's hand in the dark. "Dr. Chen?" Marcus's mother approaches me, while Emma continues her animated explanation of what to expect after surgery. "I wanted to thank you, not just for the foundation helping us get approval for Marcus's surgery, but for Emma. She's been texting with him all week, answering his questions. It's meant everything to our family. This is what I couldn't have imagined 2 years ago, that losing my ability to operate would lead to something bigger than any single surgery. Emma isn't just a child I once saved. She's become a healer in her own right, passing on hope to other scared kids and families. She wants to be a doctor, her mother had told me recently, but not a surgeon. She wants to do what you do now, fight for kids who need help. That afternoon, I'm in my new office at the university, where I now hold the position of Director of Healthcare Advocacy Research. My assistant knocks on the door. "Dr. Chen, there's someone here to see you." She says she's a former student. Jessica Martinez walks in, and I'm struck by how much she's changed since that lecture 2 years ago. Gone is the uncertain pre-med student. In her place is a confident young woman in business attire. "Dr. Chen, I graduated last month with my master's in public health," she says, practically glowing with excitement. "I took your advice about finding different ways to heal people. I've been accepted to the Policy Fellowship at the Department of Health and Human Services. I wanted to thank you for helping me see that there were other paths." "What changed your mind about surgery?" I ask. "I kept thinking about what you said, that your stroke took away your ability to operate but gave you something else. I realized I was so focused on being the doctor who saved my brother that I wasn't thinking about being the person who could prevent other families from going through what we went through." She pulls out a folder. "I've been working on something. A proposal for a national pediatric cardiac care network, standardized protocols, telemedicine consultations, mobile surgical units for rural areas. I was hoping, would you consider being my faculty advisor?" I take the folder, already impressed by her thoroughness. "Jessica, this is extraordinary work. I learned from the best," she says with a grin. That evening, I'm at home working on my book, tentatively titled The Heart of Healthcare, Finding New Ways to Heal, when my phone rings. It's Rachel, calling from London, where she's setting up Hearts for Hope International. "Sarah, you're not going to believe this. The World Health Organization wants to adopt our model as their standard for pediatric cardiac care in developing countries. They're talking about a $100 million initiative." I set down my pen, overwhelmed by the scope of what we've built. 100 million? Think about it. Every child born with a heart defect anywhere in the world would have access to care. It's what you dreamed about back when you were operating, but on a scale you never could have achieved with just surgery. After we hang up, I walk out onto my balcony overlooking the Seattle skyline. The city lights twinkle like stars, and I think about all the lives that will be touched by this work. Not just the children who receive surgery, but their siblings, their parents, their communities. My phone buzzes with a text from Emma. "Dr. Chen, I got accepted to the Young Scientists program at the Science Museum. I'm going to do my project on healthcare policy. Can you help me?" I smile, typing back, "Of course, but I think you already know more than you realize." The next morning, I'm back at the Children's Hospital for my weekly rounds, not as a surgeon, but as an advocate, checking in with families, reviewing cases, making sure no child falls through the cracks. In the elevator, I run into Dr. Williams. "Sarah, I have something for you," he says, handing me a manila envelope. "It's from the American College of Cardiology. They're creating a new award for healthcare advocacy. Guess who the first recipient is?" I open the envelope to find a letter, congratulating me on receiving the inaugural Innovation in Cardiac Care Award. But it's not the recognition that moves me. It's the attached list of statistics. In the 2 years since I lost my memory, Hearts for Hope and its various initiatives have helped 3,247 children access cardiac surgery, trained 847 healthcare advocates, influenced 23 pieces of legislation, established cardiac care programs in 156 hospitals, created a model being replicated in 34 countries. I stare at the numbers, thinking about the surgeon I used to be. In my best year operating, I performed maybe 200 surgeries. Important surgeries, life-saving surgeries, but still, 200 lives touched directly. Now I'm touching thousands of lives, and the impact keeps multiplying as other people carry this work forward. That afternoon, I'm giving a lecture to a new group of medical students when one raises her hand. "Dr. Chen, do you ever regret losing your surgical skills? Do you ever wish you could go back to being the person you were before?" It's a question I've been asked many times, but today the answer comes without hesitation. I grieved for the surgeon I lost, I tell her, but I wouldn't trade the advocate I became. The woman who operated on Emma Rodriguez saved one child. The work we're doing now will save thousands of children like Emma for generations to come. After the lecture, I walk through the hospital corridors where I once worked as a surgeon, past the operating rooms where I saved individual lives, toward the cafeteria where I now meet with families, advocates, and policymakers to save many lives at once. In the elevator, I think about that little girl who wanted to be a doctor, who promised her mother she would help people when she grew up. I kept that promise, just not in the way I expected. Sometimes the most important healing happens not in the operating room, but in the moments we choose to rebuild rather than retreat, to find new ways to serve rather than surrender to loss. I may not remember being the surgeon who saved Emma Rodriguez, but I'll never forget being the woman who learned that healing comes in many forms, and that sometimes losing everything you thought you were is the first step to becoming everything you were meant to be. The elevator doors open, and I step out into a future I never could have imagined, carrying the heart of a healer who finally understands that the most important operations aren't performed with scalpels, but with hope, determination, and the unwavering belief that every life is worth fighting for. As I walk toward my next meeting, with legislators who want to discuss expanding cardiac care access nationwide, I smile, thinking about 7-year-old Sarah Chen building sandcastles and dreaming of helping people. Mission accomplished, little girl, just not the way we planned.